Okay, today we're going to talk about the order of operations, and you've heard about this since probably sixth grade, maybe even earlier. And today we're just going to clarify a few things, maybe take it a couple levels deeper than what we've done in the past, and specifically with grouping symbols. So, mathematicians have established an order of operations to evaluate an expression that involves more than one operation, right? If it's just like 9 times 7, we all know how to do that. It's just one operation. But sometimes there's multiple operations in a row, and so there's a specific order that we do those every single time. Okay, the first one is first of all, it's called PEMDAS. And so the P stands for parentheses, is probably how you've heard it before. Parentheses. And the different thing that we're adding this year is other grouping symbols. So it includes parentheses, obviously, but then there's other grouping symbols involved, like brackets, braces, fraction bars, that kind of thing. So it's important that we include those as well as what we're going to do first. Okay, then step number 2 is exponents. Step number 3 is going to be to multiply and divide, but then left to right. Okay, so multiply does not necessarily always come before divide. It's just whichever operation comes first in order, like reading our problem. And then the last step is to add and subtract. And again, we're going from left to right. Okay, so parentheses and other grouping symbols, exponents, multiply, divide, left to right, add or subtract, left to right. So let's come down here and look at some of these examples. So the first thing you want to do, okay, on number 1, we're going to look at parentheses. Okay, are there parentheses or other grouping symbols? Right, we're referring back to here. Okay, so there are not. So the next thing that we want to do are exponents. Okay, so exponents are what's going to come first. So on this one, there is an exponent, and it's 3 squared. So we're going to evaluate that exponent. Okay, this is what we're doing first. I'll put a little E here for exponent. Okay, and that 3 squared is 9. So we have 27 divided by 9 times 2 minus 3. Okay, so there were no parentheses. We did the exponents. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look for multiplication or division moving from left to right. So the first one that I encounter is this division. So 27 divided by 9 is 3. So now we have 3 times 2 minus 3, right? This was the first one that I encountered. And so now 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. So every single time, you don't need to ask like, oh, are we doing order of operations? It's order of operations every single problem. Okay, let's just go over here to number 3. So on number 3, are there parentheses? Nope. So we go to exponents, and the exponent that I see is 2 to the 3rd power. So when I'm thinking about what that means, it means 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So it's 32 divided by 8 plus 6. So what's 32 divided by 8? That's 4. And then 4 plus 6 would be 10. Okay, so why don't y'all pause it and come down here and do number 2 on your own paper. And then when you think you have the answer, okay, unpause it and then you can check it. Okay, on number 2, there's no parentheses. The exponent that I see is 3 squared, right? And that means 3 times 3, which is 9. So I'm going to do 2 times 9 plus 4. So there were no parentheses. I did the exponents. The next step is multiplication or division from left to right. So the only one I see is 2 times 9, which is 18. And then 18 plus 4 is 22. And then let's look at number 4. So on number 4, okay, are there parentheses? Yes, and there's actually multiple sets of parentheses. So we're gonna start on the inside, right? The innermost parenthesis, which would be this one. Okay, so we're still gonna have 2 times 30 minus, so what's inside this parentheses? 8 plus 13 is 21. Okay, so I worked from the inside out of that parentheses. 8 plus 13 is 21. So now 2 times 30 minus 21 is 9. And then 2 times 9 is 18. Okay, and this is the kind of work that I need to see on your paper when you're working through the problem, so I know where you messed up on a step, or I can make sure that you're doing the steps correctly, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's look at your second page of notes. So it says a blank can act as a grouping symbol. Okay, and what we're gonna put in that blank is a fraction bar. Okay, it can act as a grouping symbol. We're going to evaluate the numerator and the denominator, okay, before we divide. Okay, so the fraction bar itself is a grouping symbol. So you work out the top of the fraction, then you work out the bottom, and then you work out the fraction as a whole. So let's look together at number 5. Okay, so this time we're evaluating 9x over 3 times x plus 2 for x is 4. Okay, so on the top, right, this numerator, that's 9 times 4 over 3 times 4 plus 2. So all I did to start off with, right, it's telling me that x is 4. So everywhere I saw an x, I just put a 4. Okay, so I've just kind of set myself up. So now I'm going to evaluate the numerator. 9 times 4 is 36. And then I'm going to evaluate the denominator. I have to do the parentheses first. 4 plus 2 is 6. And then 3 times 6 is 18. Okay, and now that these are both simplified, 36 divided by 18 is 2. And that's my final answer. So let's look at 6. Okay, same thing. This time y is equal to 8. So every time I see a y, I'm going to put an 8. So for example, on number 6, I'm going to have 10 times 8 plus 1 over 8 plus 1. So when I work that out, okay, PEMDAS up here, 10 times 8 is 80 plus 1. Okay, so what's 80 plus 1? 81. And then in the denominator, I have 8 plus 1 is 9. So 81 divided by 9 is 9. Let's look together at number 7. On number 7, these aren't evaluate, there's no variable. Okay, I'm just working this out. So I have 3 times 8 minus 2 squared. Okay, so parentheses. Do I have parentheses? Yes. So I need to do this first. Okay, well within my parentheses, what am I going to do first? Within my parentheses, I still have to follow PEMDAS. So I'm going to do this exponent first. So I'm going to have 3 times 8 minus, what's 2 squared? Right, that means 2 times 2, which is 4. So 8 minus 4. So within my parentheses, I'm still following PEMDAS, and I'm doing 2 squared, right? I can't just do 8 minus 2 because it's not 8 minus 2, it's 8 minus 2 squared, which is 4. So I have 3 times 8 minus 4 is 4, and then 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so this last one's a little bit more complicated, so why don't y'all try it on your own? Let's see how you do. And then you can pause it and then come back when you think you have your answer, and I'll walk you through it and we'll see how you did. Okay, so on this one, the first thing we have to start off with is parentheses. Okay, well this whole thing is parentheses. Okay, well within my parentheses, I have another set of parentheses. So that's where I'm gonna start. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I am going to keep everything the same. It's still 3/4 times 13 minus 2 plus 3 is 5 and then I'm squaring that, right? All I did was this 2 plus 3 first, which is 5. So now I have 3/4 times 13 minus 5 is 8 squared. Okay, I don't know why I did that so big. So I've done my parentheses, right? I cannot simplify anything more inside this parentheses. So the next thing I have to do is my exponent. Okay, so my exponent is what's being raised to the second power. It's 8. So 8 squared is 8 times 8, which is 64. So 3/4 times 64. Okay, so if you're a little bit rusty on how do I do this, okay, I'm gonna come over here. So 3/4 times 64/1, right? And so what I can do is I can go ahead and cross reduce, right? What are these two both divisible by? I know they're both divisible by 4, but let's just say I didn't. Okay, and I'm like, oh, they're both divisible by 2. So that's 2 and 32. Well, those two are still even. They're both divisible by 2, so that's 1 and 16. So now, oh, I can't figure out which way. There we go. On the top, I have 3 times 16, which is 48. And then 1 times 1 is 1. And 48/1 is 48. Right? If you had $64 and I asked you to split it into 4 groups, each group would be 16. And then if you had 3 out of those 4 groups, 16 plus 16 plus 16 would be 48.